Hi. We're being told now that if we remain in the EU, we will avoid war. Um, but I think we're forgetting that the main issue, the main reason for the referendum is the unlimited immigration that it brings. It's not about racism or war or the economy, but the sheer numbers that would come and the unsustainability of it, the impossibility of complying with these EU laws of free movement of people. The UK is the second most densely populated nation on Earth, the first being Japan. We are both islands. We both have limited space. We are an increasingly multicultural society in a dense small island area. We have already had riots spreading throughout the UK in the past. And with so many ethnic groups, and more now of the Middle Eastern groups, where ethnic groups battle each other, and are the cause even of the Syrian war and the current divisions within the world, be it by nations or within nations. As time goes by, we will have an increasing danger of civil war within the UK. Forgetting about wars outside in Europe, we will have difficulties within the UK due to these ethnic groups that will gradually have a different attitude towards taking out their vengeance on opposing ethnic groups, as they do in the Middle East. We don't look into it here. It's something that we don't do, but if we have those nationalities here, it's something that they're used to. We've already had a man killed in Scotland by an opposing Muslim ethnic believer. These Middle Eastern divisions will be in our own country by people who still follow an ancient book that contradicts itself, and they do not read it properly. And it is this we must focus on to avoid war, and to assist all nations in the world to flourish economically as well. Currently, the smaller developing nations cannot trade freely with Europe because of tariffs, etc. And it is this we must change, either by all of the EU nations taking a step back and voting out, as it were, and refocus on free trading worldwide and security worldwide for all nations. Or the UK can just vote out and join those other smaller nations and be an advocate for them, for fairer trade laws for ourselves and them. All the world is trying to get into Europe. All the world's populations, many of them, because of the work and the benefits and the healthcare we have. The world and Europe has to help all nations develop and improve their economies, and not just for Europe to be flourishing, or America, for instance. For this great influx of people to Europe is not sustainable. It's not possible. The same with the USA and Mexico. They must help Mexico develop further. The government and others say we have control of our borders. Yes, we can check the papers and return really bad criminals, but this is not what the public means about controlling borders, for we cannot stop anyone from the EU that decides to come and live here, with or without a job, to come if they want to come, and are free to claim benefits. We have more jobs in the UK in the moment and a higher minimum wage. This is an attraction to people. We are told that 60% of our laws are controlled by the EU. The EU law states that after 5 years residency, any EU citizen can obtain a British passport. In 30 years' time, 20 years, we could become 80, 100, 125 million or more in population. We already have insufficient school places, not enough homes, and an NHS system that is 3 million in deficit, in debt. Soon we may have no benefit system at all. Child benefit is already reduced to only 2 children, as an example. We may soon have no free NHS care, particularly if the doctors continue with their strike, because the only way we've abolished strikes in other institutions like the railways or the miners is to make it private. So they will drive the government to making it private in order to stop these strikes, so that they don't happen again, because they tend to stop when companies become private. We may soon have no free primary or secondary education, because again, if the demand is so great, We have no school places as it is. There just won't be the funds there for that. Our own green spaces may soon be covered with houses more and more because we have no homes. Even in Kent, where I once lived, in a completely rural area with fields around, about 10 miles from the main town, it is being planned and approved, is already underway, 50% underway, for new homes being built to cover all of this land to where I once lived and beyond. This was unthinkable when I lived there. We have a population in the UK of 65 million, France similar, 65 million, Germany 75 million. They both have larger land space than the UK, but if we remain in the UK, they will not consider this land space issue. They would just consider that we have a strong economy, and they will want to take money out of it and allow us to, and cause us to continue to pay benefits, which we pay much higher here. But if we go to Poland or Bulgaria or Hungary or similar, or even France, I'm not sure what their benefit is, we wouldn't get the same. It all depends on what their economies give. If refugee quotas are eventually imposed by the EU, which they may yet do after the referendum, plus many other things, like removing the rebate we currently receive, again, all that will matter is whether our economy is strong. And we will be working hard, tightening our belts in austerity and that sort of thing to make sure the economy is strong, in order to pay benefits to people who are not working, haven't got work, and haven't got skills quite often. And it's just an impossibility, that it just won't work. You know, it's like 2 + 2 = 4. You can't make it work. You know, if people haven't got skills and they haven't got work, and it's a better, you get benefits if you manage to get here, then people are going to come. That's it. That's the end of it. The UK will be a greater magnet for EU immigrants because many speak English as their second language. Polish is already the second most spoken language here. There is high unemployment and low benefit payouts in most of the other EU countries. So it is not Europe and its policies that make it work or prosper, but that a few nations that are strong, like Germany and the UK, and we pay money in. Others benefit from that and quite often waste it by corruption or similar. I already heard of countries in the EU where projects are being built and they've been left unfinished, or they're completely useless projects. You know, you get people work for people, but then the project just stands empty. So this, and also in Greece, you have people retiring at 50 and having jobs on the council, and 50 people will be applying for one job and being paid for that one job, even though 50 were employed for one job. It's this sort of thing. So all this will affect our society and our economy. Do not think we will be safe if we remain in the EU. Eventually, that will destroy our economy as well. The USA and all the other countries encouraging us to remain, nor even our own government. They do not speak of the effects of the unlimited immigration that we're going to have to deal with, and the fact that we already are falling under the weight of the demands on our institutions like the NHS and the homes and the schools. They don't look on the long-term effects of what unlimited immigration is going to will have on us and our economy. You know, in 30 or 50 years' time, if we are 100 million or 125 million, the benefit system probably will be kaput by then. It just won't be able to sustain it, and probably we will have unemployment too, because there'll be so many people here, we can't sustain it. But we will be obliged to sustain the benefits, what's left on them, to the very vulnerable, or the homeless, or the for instance, you know, I looked on the benefit streets, and they had somebody applying for one of the few homes we did have here, and it was given to a Polish couple who had one child plus another child that was handicapped. So this is what will happen. It will just be for those, and it won't matter whether you're English or not. You'll find that many of the homes, council homes, will be going to people that are not really English, nor even resident here. all these institutions like the IMF and the USA, and well, the USA is not an institution, but these other parties saying that we should remain in the UK, in the EU, but they do not care what happens to our society. Even many with British passports will not care. They will only care about bringing their family over or their compatriots and having the same opportunities as they have here. I mean, it's logical. I would probably do the same. If my family was starving or in difficulty back home, I'd try and get them to a place where they could flourish. But although we have to have compassion, we can't have so much compassion that it destroys what we have for those that need it here as well. It becomes a foolishness. And we have to vote out before we are overcome by Europe and its laws, and we have no identity nor nation. Most of Europe would probably like to see the British downfall. When they say they want us to stay, that's not necessarily they want us to stay because we're one of the few that pay money into the EU. That's probably the main reason they want us to stay. And also there is a fear, I think, that if we come out, that others will want to come out because others will begin to recognise that the EU isn't necessarily going to be the best thing for us. Unemployment in the EU is quite high, so we need to be brave and be bold on this, and not listen necessarily to what the government is saying, because I think they are misleading us to an extent, because as I say, Theresa May and this leaflet the government has sent out actually says that we can control the borders, but they mean that we can check the passports and that sort of thing and stop criminals coming in. We don't mean that. We're talking about this unlimited immigration. There's a difference in the meaning, so it's sort of very misleading, and you will be easily deceived if you don't go into this until we stand for nothing and have nothing, which is what the EU is trying to do, because ultimately I think they're trying to make it one nation, one state, like America is to an extent, and that we're all one nationality and we all have the same benefit system and the same. But you have to remember as well that America doesn't even have a terribly good benefit system, and their national health service is mostly private. So, should we really be listening to America? They have their country flooded with guns. And yes, there's free opportunity, but only if you work hard. And if you're not doing well, then things are not so good. So we need to keep this in mind when we start listening to other people and telling us what we ought to do, perhaps, about staying in or coming out of the EU. But not everybody works and abides by the law as well. Some are more corrupt because they've had more difficulties than we have. It cannot work. And we might find we vote in, and then other nations will think to themselves as time goes on that this isn't for them, and they'll vote out, and we'll be stuck in. For we will not change the EU. They will continue to change us for the worse, irretrievably. So be brave, vote out, and give Britain one last chance, and open the door for other EU nations, and perhaps Africa, and other struggling nations who are very severely affected by the EU laws and its trading restrictions on them. Staying in the EU, there is no chance for us or them. We cannot take what the EU demands, unlimited immigration and resulting permanent residency for those who wish to after 5 years. We cannot do it.